Perfect. So welcome everybody to our class. I'm going to do it again. And then I'm sorry that I started and we didn't see you. So the first screen, of course, right? And this is the Adobe Creative Cloud that you have over here and all the application that you have. And then you can collaborate between the applications. So you can see here that I have my screen of my iPad, I have my laptop, and I have my regular computer, and I can share between applications anytime that I want to go. So this is working with Adobe Creative Cloud. And if I go back to demo, you can see right away my libraries over here, and I can share with people directly. So the libraries, like I said before, they are not belonging to Photoshop or Illustrator or InDesign. They belong to the entire ecosystem. So you can create a library and then start sharing it with anything that you want, but you need to figure out that some things are not compatible, and then you take care of that. So if you have sound is not compatible, let's say with InDesign, because you don't have sound automatically with InDesign, that's going to be something that we're going to work with Premiere. So these are the desktop application that I mentioned before, while I didn't share my screen, but now you can see it again. And then I have the mobile application, and I have the web application. So we're talking about complete web application, and this is the design and layout, which is Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, which we are going to dive into that as when I finish kind of like the presentation. You have the photography applications, which is Lightroom, Photoshop, and Lightroom Classic. And the video and film, I'm not going to get into it because we have another seminar about that, which is going to be about Premiere Pro and about After Effects. So here it is, Adobe Express. And that's when we stopped before. And if I click on Adobe Express, now you see. So how many of you using Adobe Express? How many of you are using Canva? Yay. So this is basically Adobe answer to Canva. And the good news about it, I'm not going to say the pros and cons and all this stuff, because I kind of respect everybody that's create a software. The good news about Express that it goes into the Adobe ecosystem. So you're not kind of like doing something and say, where am I going to take it? You do something in Express, you can jump to Photoshop, to Illustrator, to After Effects, you can jump to Premiere, you can cut videos directly over here. And I'm not a video person, but when I create some videos sometime and they're not so great, I'm gonna go actually to Adobe Express and I'm cutting the video there because I don't want to start working with Premiere so much. So it is great because you can even work, believe it or not, with Acrobat inside Adobe Express. So we're going to look at it in a second. And then we have Adobe Firefly. Anybody heard about Adobe Firefly? So this is kind of like a lot of fun. And when we start working with it in a second, you're not going to want to do something else. You're just going to go in and you want to work with Adobe Firefly because this is your Adobe answer to AI. So in Firefly, which is free because you have the Creative Suite, you can start working on images, change some stuff, even do some vector images. And we're going to go in and play with it and then just do all kind of fun stuff with Adobe Firefly in a second. And then this is the part that I love to talk a lot about it, and that's Behance. And again, I'm going to ask a question. How many of you know what Behance is? Exactly, a designer's website. And I actually call it a designer playground, like a creative playground. And don't get frustrated when you first start going there because you'll see some work there that's going to blow your mind. I mean, really amazing. And people that are looking to hire looking at Behance. It's almost like maybe portfolio for creatives or maybe Instagram for creatives. It's an area that you have landing pages and free classes, absolutely free, that they call it Adobe Live, that you can go into a certain subject, and there is maybe going to be a class, and then who are doing it, not even teachers, really artists that working in the field, like animators, designers, marketers, or whatnot. I actually stream on Behance every Wednesday at 6:30, and then I'll show you my page, and then it records everything that you have. So like yesterday, I did logos in Illustrator, and then people can tune in and be part of it. So this is the landing page for Behance. And again, I'm explaining what Behance is. So if I'm going to click on Behance here, it will going to go and take you to a certain page on Behance. And it's actually taking it to my page right now. But if I'm going to go back here to my page itself, I can go in and start exploring. So this is my main page, kind of a miniature portfolio of the stuff that I'm doing. But if I stream every week, you can see over here my streaming videos, and in each time it's on a different kind of project and things like this. But then all the way up, there's jobs, there's assets, exploration, something for you. So kind of Behance very smart. You understand, because when I'm browsing for other actually educator to see what they're doing. So get a lot of education stuff. But if you start browsing, let's say for marketing, you're going to get a lot of marketing stuff over there. Highly recommend to open a page. Doesn't cost money. Open your page and start putting stuff as a miniature portfolio. And you can even call it in progress or something. So you can even explain what you're doing and tell that it is work in progress. So you can see here, this is some of my work, and some of my work is, you see, I have some drafts over here, like things I thought I want to go and show somebody, but I don't want to put it in there. But you can put there all kind of project, you can put there drawing, painting, and all kind of stuff there, which is really, really cool. Highly recommend to go into Behance and start kind of like working with it. The other service that we have, and you all get it, is Adobe Fonts. So this one is really great because if you're going to start working with Express or Photoshop or Illustrator or anything else, you don't have to purchase typefaces anymore. And we know all of us are kind of like, oh, do you want this? Do you want to verify? And then start sharing it. You don't have to do that. It all comes to you from the cloud. I think it's around 3,000 typefaces already that you can get. And the good news about it, it's almost teaching you also typography over there. So if I'm going to go into the Adobe font area, look what I have here. So before any project that I'm doing, for inspiration, I'm going to look at some stuff here, and then I'm going to search the font by Elegant Script, but original, fun and funky. So look at that. I'm just going to go and search for something, and look what I'm getting right now. And now I'm going to go in and click on something, and they say, well, this typeface name is Moon Blossom, and they're showing you how some people are using. Really, all what I have to do is edit, and it's there. The good news, it's already there. The bad news is, if you create something, let's say in Illustrator or in Photoshop or in InDesign, and send it to a client and they are not part of Creative Cloud, it's going to tell them an error message. They're going to see the typeface not in the right resolution, and they're going to tell them you can fix anything. Why? Because they don't own it. Because it's not on my hard drive. It's not like typefaces that I have that on my hard drive. It's basically up in the sky. So what is the solution? There's other solution. You can create a PDF. You can create outline in Illustrator. Or guess what? You can tell your client, you can pay for it and people can purchase it. So it's really depending on the project that you're going to do. I love using the Adobe Creative Cloud typefaces because I think they're really, really great. And then the same thing is Adobe Stock. Adobe Stock is a little bit different. That costs money. So depending on the membership that you have, some schools, especially kind of high school, will purchase some Adobe Stock. Most of it, I think we're getting like 10 kind of free. But then there's a lot of freebies over there that you can look into it. I'm really an avid believer in free stuff. So I kind of like download the free things that I have there. But you can also do it for position only or for presentation. And download something that you don't pay for it yet. And then after doing it, you're going to decide, are we buying it or not? Some of this stock is really expensive. It's just depending how it works. But you can go into other services of stock, not just to Adobe, to get stuff. So this brings you actually to the Adobe Stock. And over here, you can see that it's going to go into Discover Free Royalty. And then you have school and science and shopping and everything. But I can go to the freebies. And these guys are actually free. And then I can start using them. Just be careful. I highly recommend not to click on stuff that and say purchase, because if you have your credit card part of the membership, it just goes right away there. Happens to me when I click to show in a class how a video stock is looking, and instead clicking it, I click on purchase. And then I'm looking at my phone and it says $450 went into my credit card. Wasn't very happy. I said to the class, can you excuse me for a minute? And I went to call Adobe. And then, of course, right away I called. It took, but sometimes it's not going to happen. So be really, really careful when you do that. You get some templates. So when you explore, just try to do just previews. And then the way it is going to look, let's say if you're going to, let's say, technology, and I'm going to go back here to something with computers, they're going to say, to see the word buy, you don't want to click on that. And I can go back here and I can just do a preview. So when you see the blue thing, don't click unless somebody is helping you and paying for it, because this stuff kind of costs money. You can say that you like it. You can also do a preview, and then you can find similar to that while you're working. So this is the Adobe type of font. Then you have a lot of supports in video, which is really, really cool. Most of the app have a direct connection to videos that are done by Adobe experts, and then you can start clicking and listening to videos. So between Behance and LinkedIn Learning and this, you have so many ways to start listening and learning all kind of stuff. So there's a lot of information over here. And sometimes I say, well, I wish I had enough time to start. Every time I show it, I say, well, yeah, I'm going to go tomorrow and listen to the photo editing in Premiere or in Photoshop. And then I forget that this is what I wanted to do because there's no time. The last one that I have here, and then we're going to jump into some apps, is the Adobe Community Forum. I'm part of this. It's called the Adobe Community Expert. If some of you are going to get expert later, they're really very happy sometime to take some students to be in this community. It's really great. You get to know a lot of stuff ahead of time, and people sit there on the forum and answer questions. So you can ask any question that you want, and somebody like me will be there online and say, yes, no, maybe in between, what are you talking about? Of course, here's a link, and go ahead and do that. So now, just in general, because you guys doing probably marketing and communication, you really always need to know a little bit about some design aspect before you jump into the Adobe application. So I kind of talked a little bit about brand identity. Why is it important? Why it's important to create a brand and make it recognizable. So it is consisting on overall brand design, the color and the way you use it, the logo and the brand name, the typeface of the font, and the purpose is that somebody easily recognize. And I gave here a sample of something really familiar to everybody. And this is the Nike swoosh. You don't even have to write the word Nike anymore. Somebody sees the swoosh and knows. But it didn't start from there. They started with different kind of logos until they designed that in 1995. And by the way, the person who designed it was a student. And I think she got like around $50 to design it. But when Nike got bigger, they gave her some kind of percentage of the company. Not a lot, but a little bit. So why is this important? It is important to create design system for your design. So you got to think about it when you work, especially when you work in communication and marketing. It's really important. And I gave another example here, which is Coca-Cola. They even have their own typefaces. So everybody sees Coca-Cola in different languages. It looks like the Coca-Cola. Everybody knows what Coca-Cola is. Disney has the same thing, has their own typeface that you have. And here I put in some ideas about elements of brand identity, the logo, the color panel, the visual element, and the design style, and basically working with mood board, exploring and researching your design before you dive into a project that you're doing. Of course, very important to work with the colors and to understand the difference between RGB and CMYK. And CMYK is usually for print. RGB is for online and design. Really important to start looking into color, which we're not going to get into it. It's just kind of like a little overview showing you how I'm changing colors. And you remember the logo was kind of green. So you have a lot of green colors. And this is the logo I just created as a demo. So now, before we start diving into Adobe Firefly, any questions about the general ecosystem? And do you get an idea already and understand which software more or less does what, and kind of like start understanding what do you need when you do? Any questions about that? Are you guys okay with that? Okay. Here's the project files over here. You can scan it, and if you got it, you have it already. And this is Adobe Firefly overview. And we're gonna look at text to image, maybe generative fill, and text to vector, which we're going to go in and look at vector design, and that's in Illustrator. So what I'm going to do now, that should be interactive. I did give you some Firefly images. And then if I click on that, actually these images were actually, it was a video that I created over here. It just like the PDF doesn't read the video, but if I click on it, I'll show you in a minute. So what does it mean? I went into Firefly and created it. So I'm going to escape that. I don't really want to use the slide presentation at the moment. And I'm going to go to my Chrome, and then I'm going to type firefly.adobe.com. And you can do that too. And this is what you get right now when you get into firefly.adobe.com over here. And let's talk a little bit about that. So what is it? Get creative with Adobe Creative Cloud, Firefly, and then create generative AI. So if I go all the way down here, they kind of tell you all kind of components that they have within Firefly that you can start working and playing with it. So coming soon is video generative. They don't have it yet. And that's why it says coming soon. And then they have something generative expand. We're going to look at that. And then you have text to image, generative fill preview, generative to template, and generative to vector. So when I'm talking about vector, I'm talking about stuff that it's resolution independent. Could be any size, because it's vector. And what is a vector-based application? It's Illustrator or InDesign, and it is resolution independent. It's basically objects. So what do you use it for? Icons, logos, all kind of images, banners maybe, stuff that you don't know the size and you want to make it bigger. I use a lot of the stuff over here in Illustrator when I want to draw, let's say, all kind of icon for different kind of application and things like this. So I'm looking here and we'll start with text to image. And then you have something get inspired by the community. So you can do something even today and submit it to the community. Is it gonna be there? I'm not sure. I submitted like 40 of them. I still didn't see what I submitted there. Maybe it's hiding somewhere. Where is it going from? And do you have a copyright for it? Yes, you do, because it comes from Adobe stock, most of the stuff. And now they started doing new stuff, and in the future, they're gonna start training other application to bring the AI. I look at it as inspiration. I don't look at it as somebody else taking my job. I'm looking at I still need to be a good designer. I still need to understand typeface and colors and branding and the whole idea behind it. But this is going to help me do something if I want to start creating. So let's decide to do something together. I do have few prompts that I wrote down. My problem is to find out the prompt that I want to write. I always end up with this, a big dog with a balloon and a flower in his face. I mean, kind of like stuff that's not really cool. But what I did the other day, I went online and I wrote expressive, creative type, prompt for AI. And I got kind of like an assortment of AI prompt. So let's all go. If you went there, we can go into text to image together and click. And this is what you get right now in text to image. And this is something that comes already with that. And then look how many you have. Tons of stuff here, different kind of ideas and different kind of samples. Sometimes I'm looking at it and say, do I have one of mine over here? Because it comes from the gallery. So far, I didn't find it, but you can see it's endless. One thing is, if we all use the same prompt today in a minute, all of us are going to get different kind of images. It's never the same. And that's why I want us to use kind of one prompt and look at that. So let's say, do you guys see the horsey or you don't see the horse in the prompt? So let's say I'm going to click on the horse over here. And it tells you all the way down, and it's very, very tiny over here. And it said, it's a unicorn in nostalgic noir, a scene inspired by a black and white film with a moody look. So really they're asking you to do the prompt, maybe something that you want to see, something that they do, or maybe something they hold. And it can get really, really crazy if you want. So now, this is what I have right now. And then I'm going to go back here and I can try a prompt of myself now. So I'm going to highlight this. And who volunteers to give us a little prompt? It has to be, with few kind of subjects. Could be a short one too. Be careful from spelling mistakes. And I have a funny story to share with you. I was presenting somewhere and I wanted to do my regular prompt with the dog. And I wrote something, and instead of dog, I wrote dig. And then I'm looking at the file while everybody's watching, and I said, look at the, this is not dog. There were flower and balloon inside a hole and a dig, and people digging stuff, because it took whatever word that I wrote, it took it. Everybody, of course, were laughing. It is, and then if it's real a spelling mistake and not a word, it will tell you, I don't know what it is. You're not allowed to put curses. You're not allowed to put kind of like stuff that anti and stuff like this. They're gonna tell you, we can do it, we can't do it. So they wanted it to be kind of like nice and sweet or anything. I do have actually a few prompts here, but let me just do my generic prompt right now. So I'm gonna say a brown dog sitting, already I'm doing, sitting on a chair holding a red flower and with a star on the head. Who knows? So I did that, and now I'm going to go back here and generate. So I'm going to go back here and generate that. And sometimes it will take a moment, depending on the internet. So it's kind of thinking right now, and look at this, and looking at the stuff for me, and look what I have. You remember the dog that I showed you in my slide presentation? It kind of looks a little bit like him, right? So look what he did. Did you guys try the prompt? Let me know if it's looking like this, it's not looking like that, but look what I have. They're giving you in the beginning 4 always. You can go and regenerate again, and it will do another kind of pass on it. But then there's other things that you can play with. Let's say I like this guy. So I'm going to go back to this guy. And one of the things I highly recommend, if you like it, download it. Just download him. Because it's never going to come back the same one if I do it again. Exactly the same. So I can go back here and download it. And then you want to do with more images. I'm going to go in asking you to add text or stuff like that. And if you want to do that, and then I have that with it. And now what else can I do here? On the left side, what I have, it tells you that it is by Adobe Firefly. It tells you the aspect ratio. I can change the aspect ratio of the image. But what I really can do here is do work with the composition. And by default, it said art for me. I might go in and I'm going to say I want it to be a photo. And then, oh, I want it to be an art, depending which one. And then you can go back here and generate it again. And it's going to generate it with a different look right away. Does that make sense? So kind of like you're going to go in and look at that. Not so great over here. Look what happened to the flower completely on the face. But this one is a little bit better and a little bit better over here. But I'm going to go into the composition here. And then it's asking you, do you want to have a reference file that's going to take this file and then going to make it look different, by the example that you want to go and upload, or but any example that you give. So I'm going to click on one of the examples that we have here, and then I can generate it again. So I have the same thing, but now look what I'm getting right now. So it would be great if you guys try it, because this is something for you to work with. And then when we go to Photoshop later, I can show you what else. So look at this. It's the same images, but it kind of took some of the reference that I have. I can play with the strength of the reference, or I can make it less or more, and then I can go in and generate it. So I'm going to put another reference on purpose. And every time you can generate. And by the way, I can download and download and download everything that I have. And by the way, when we start working in a second in Photoshop, Photoshop has a lot of stuff from Firefly directly into Photoshop. So look over here, this is the images that I get. Do I want to go in and change the style a little bit, the strength? But when I want to go another effect. So all the way down, I do have effects. And then I can start clicking on the effects. And then again, I'm going to go back here and generate it again. Oops. And I'm going to go back here and my file just disappeared. Okay, whoops. Oh, what happened to my file here? Let me just go back here to it. Okay, here it is. I just moved it. Okay, So I have here, and now I'm gonna go into another reference. So I have composition reference, and I also have a structure reference over here. And maybe I should not just move it like this because this is not really working perfectly right now. And then I usually work with my tablet, and I don't have it here with me today. Oh, okay. I'm going to try not to click a lot. And then I'm going to go in to kind of like generate it. So I'm going to go and generate and look what I'm getting right now. So at the moment, while I'm generating it, I'm actually getting another kind of look. So you can go into Firefly and do different kind of stuff, and look what I got right now. Looks a little bit different, right? Absolutely something different. I'm going to go to this guy here, and let's say I'm going to download him. Another thing I want to go and do with it, I can give a feedback, but in the edit, look what I can do. I can go and do generative fill, and then go into an area, draw something, and tell it to put something else instead. I can also go in to generate something similar, and then I'm going to go in and create design. So if I'm going to go in, create design, it's basically going to go in and open it in Adobe Express, and then you're going to go in and start talking to it, and look at that. I just clicked on add text right now, and look what it's doing. And that's why I talked to you about the difference between Canva and Adobe Express. It's here. You can do so many things already, and right away go back to Express, and now I'm going to start working. So I can add text and everything. So you're going to ask me, well, do you have Firefly within Adobe Express? Yes, you do. So in Adobe Express itself, there's also feature of Firefly. So I can go back here, and let's say I'm going to say this is, or maybe I'm going to say sweet dog with a flower. And I'm going to select all, and it's too big over here, and I'm in Express right now. They have stuff that they're recommending to you. Do you want it to look like this? Do you want it to look like that? If you don't know anything about typography or anything like this, maybe you want to go back here and want to see the text that looks like this. And now right away, it is on a circle. And if I go and make it a little smaller, you can see that I'm going to start over here, and right away have the text a little bit smaller all the way here, and even go back here and give it some kind of a different color. And right now what I have here is basically text over here, and it is going to tell me that it is sweet dog with a hole over there, and then this is what I have over here. So different kind of things. And where did I do, and what did I do with this image? I did it right away with that. So when I'm in Adobe Express, and it is not an Adobe Express actually seminar, I can start also creating stuff from scratch right away. And then I'm going to add my text over here. I can have templates. And if I go to media, upload from device, and look what I have here, generate an image. So if I'm going to go generate an image, I'm going to make the image square. And let's say I want the image to be, anybody volunteers to give a little prompt over here. What kind of image you want to get there? A cat? I don't know. A cat reading a book. And then I'm going to go back here and generate. So while I'm already there, I have the same idea, and I'm going to get kind of like few versions. It always comes with 4 versions. And then you go more and more and more. And then in a minute, you can do, oh, look at this. It's a cat reading a book. It's another cat reading a book. It is art. Do you want to have it as graphics? Do you want the graphics to have neon? And do you want to generate it and doing it a little bit different? And what if you just wanted the cat without the background? do you need to go to Photoshop to isolate it, or you can isolate it over here? So they're gonna give you a lot of stuff here, and look at this. I have one neon one, another neon one that I have. I have composition, I have style, I have everything that I want to do with it. I can go generate the image again. I can do a generative fill for it, or I can just remove the background. And in a minute, you can see I have just a cat. Does that make sense? So little thing, and where am I now? I am in Adobe Express. So you can start with Firefly. You can go to Adobe Express. And now we're going to start looking at the three power guys, which are Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. So I know I asked you in the beginning, anybody opened Photoshop before? And what did you do with Photoshop? Like cut images? It was a while ago, and yeah. So Photoshop is not easy. It's a little complicated. The UI is more complicated. Highly recommend, if you guys don't need to go dive into the deep area, you can start doing a lot of your graphics and the presentation in Adobe Express and start bringing images from Adobe Creative Cloud, from the stock images, create images over here, generate some stuff. Because look at this kitty cat, I can actually duplicate it. And then maybe each one of them, I can go and make a different kind of effect. So now you can see I have different effects, and it's the same kitty cat that I had over here. And then I can make adjustment. I can even animate it within Adobe Express. And then I can create a PNG, a PDF, or even a link to send to the client and show them, do you like it or not? So in 2 weeks, when I'm going to do the Express seminar, I'm going to show you how to create really kind of like presentation, almost like a beginning portfolio. I'm going to click Escape right now, and then get out of Adobe Express. And then I'm going to launch the Photoshop. And it is Photoshop 2024. It takes kind of like more like to work with it. And this is basically Photoshop in a nutshell. And I'm going to go back here and then reset the essentials over here. And this is basically the welcome screen of Photoshop that you have. And then if I worked on it before, you can see the images that I worked with. And if you didn't, you're going to see just general information. In the Learn tab, look what you have here. So let's say I'm going to talk about some stuff and you're not going to remember anything because it is kind of like a fast thing through, like it's almost like a demo seminar that you want to see what's there and if you want to use it or not. But I have a lot of videos over here. So what are we going to go and see there? I'm going to go in, and this is Adobe Express. This is quick actions, generative AI, and different templates. So if you click on my presentation, I have an area with templates if you want to do stuff like this at home. And this is Photoshop. That's what I'm going to try to do one or two little project here. Adobe Photoshop, graffiti and filters, remove background, blending modes. Oh, it is a spelling mistake here. Adjustment layer, null filters. And then there is like working with layers, blending mode, adjustment layers, and variation. So I'm not going to start building it in front of you because that's going to take a while. But we're going to go and open some stuff and then going to look how to create something super, super simple while we are working. So I'm going to go to Photoshop. And then if I don't want to see this welcome screen, I can go to the tiny little icon all the way in the upper left corner and click on it. And this is actually the default UI in Adobe Photoshop over here. So how do I get the default? I can go to window menu bar And under the workspaces, they're giving you some workspaces. Think that they think you're going to need to do, if you do, let's say you want to do only photography in Photoshop, because that's a lot of people, that's what they do. So if I'm going to go to the photography workspace, look what I'm getting all the way up here, some panels that belong to the photography workspace. If I'm going to go into the graphics and web, I have some stuff that looks for graphics and web, but I can make my own. And all the way up, you can see I have something that says core tools and another one that says PS test. This is the stuff that I show the student that they do the testing, how to create a workspace, and look at it, it looks absolutely different. So you can create any workspace that you want. All the panels, in the end of the day, they are under the window menu bar. So if you don't see any panel, you don't have to panic because they're all over here. Always going to be here, and then you work. So you can go, let's say, to the toolbar and make it a long toolbar or 2 columns toolbar. And the same thing you can go in and do with the workspace. You can go into the workspace and then you can make it as panel or you can make that as icons. So whatever you want to do, you can just go in and play. So that was the core tools. And you saw that I change it. So if I say reset the core tools, it will go back here, and then it is going to go back here and reset it right away to the way it was. So let's do something. I know it is hard because we didn't start and do anything. So let's go in if you have my file, and if not, feel free to watch me. The important panel, the most important panel in Photoshop is the layers panel. Why? Because everything that we want to do with Photoshop, no matter what level you start, you want it to be non-destructive as much as you can. So you can always go back to the original. So I don't want to work, let's say, with my image and start drawing on my eyes and moving my ears and putting a bow in my hair on the same layer because it's stuck. It's almost like taking paints and slapping it on the canvas, and if it's not looking good, you have to scrape it. So you need to work with a layer system. So for almost everything, you're going to open a layer. There's stuff that non-destructive, like I call it the real one, that you have reverse engineering. And there's stuff that you duplicate your layer and say, look at this, I did this or I did that. I'm going to open a final image that I have. And by the way, you see my UI is pretty dark over here. If I'm going to go to the Photoshop 2024, and I'm going to go to the setting area and the general settings, I can go back here and I'm going to go to the interface and I can make the interface a little lighter. And a lot of times, sometimes for a class, I will make it a little lighter because you can see, you can read it a little bit better. In real life, I work with the medium color, but let's say for now, I'm just going to do that because I think you can read it a little bit better for my screen. And then I can change it at any time. So now if I click OK, I can go into File and Open. And I'm going to jump over to the seminar that we have. And then I divided it into project. In the Firefly area, you just have images from Firefly and extra images that I did. And then you have like a video of the dog with different kind of. So what I did is I put it into Photoshop and I did GIF animation from it. And if I'm going to Photoshop area, I called it the Photoshop project. So I have a portrait here, which is a final, but I'm going to double click over here. And I have 1, 2, and 3 projects. I always do more projects than needed. And let's say I'm going to click on the word graffiti. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to double click on the final project. And then I'm going to click on Graffiti PSD and open. And that's going to be, let's say, the final. It's going to tell me something about the type. And do you like to update it? I'm going to say, okay. So what do we have here? Let's kind of like investigate it in terms of the UI. First of all, I zoomed in. On the left side, I do have my tools panel. We're not going to go into everything today, but every time you go on a tool, let me know what you see there. It is a video that's telling you what this tool is doing. So in the beginning, if you don't remember anything, if I go into the move tool, it tells you, move the selection on layer. You want to learn more, you click. So I'm going to click on that. And now I'm going to click on the layer and I'm going to move it from the side. So everything is movable on everything on the Adobe application except Express. You cannot turn the little files there, which frustrates a lot of people, but the others doing it. And you have a kind of a video about the layers. I don't want to see that, but look what I have over here. This is the layers panel. Let me know if you see it okay on the screen. And what do I have here? On the left side, do you see the eyes? These are the visibility buttons. I can turn it off. What do I see now? It is the same file. If I save it, no harm done. I just don't see it. So you see, it is transparent. I can go and say, well, I started with the wall. And then I did some kind of a smart filter to it, which called threshold, and that's the surfer. And then I have color lookup over here, another one over here, and then I have some kind of text, and I said the perfect wave is out there. Some stuff here is absolutely non-destructive. What does it mean? You see here the color lookup, I can double click on it and change it, or I can just turn it off. If I want to go to the text, I can go to the type tool and highlight it and type something else. The type is absolutely live. And then I have the surfer. And the surfer has a filter that has something threshold. And if I click on it, she has something called a blending mode that I'm blending it to the surface that I have. So I can really change it without asking the designer what it did. What does it mean? I can go to the move tool and I can click on the surfer and move her over here because that's what I feel like doing. I can click on the text and move it here. And then I can double click on the threshold over here and change that to something that looks like this, or maybe something that really light. So you can see that I change everything that I have there. And based on that, I kind of have a different look. I'm going to open the other one, and then we're going to build something. File and open. And then I have another graffiti, which doesn't have the colors over there. And then you can see there that I'm going to see that and look at this. She's not on the water. She is on a different area. So I'm going to go in the same image, but then I have another image that has some kind of brick on it. And all the way in the layers panel, there's a place called blending, and I can change it. And look at that. As soon as I click on this, look what I'm doing. So do you see changes? The blending mode takes the color on top based on the color below and change the look. So if I go to multiply, look what I'm seeing. Can I go to the opacity and change it a little less? Yes, I can. And now if I go to the surfer, you can see she's on top of it, but it looks a little bit different. Of course, I can type something And of course, I can do another kind of an adjustment. So let's try and do something as simple as that together, if you are up to it. Are you guys up to do something? So I'm going to go to my file and open. And in the graffiti files, look what I have. I have a zebra, and I have a brick, and I have the concrete wall. So I'm going to go back here and select the concrete wall, hold down the Command key and click on the zebra and click on the stone pixels. And I'm gonna take, I don't want to surfer right now. I'm gonna click open. And this is what I have. Let me just go back here and then go in and decide we start from the concrete wall. The first thing we're gonna do is file and save as. And I'm going to do it. I can save it to Creative Cloud, which is great because then I can open it on my iPad and I can open it at home and anytime. Or of course, I can go in and save it on my desktop. So I'm going to go in and save it to the, see, these are files that I have on Creative Cloud. Look what I have there. A lot of stuff. And then I'm going to call it composition. And then I want to have that as Adobe Photoshop file. Why am I doing it as Adobe Photoshop file? Because I'm going to start adding layers. So if you save it as a JPEG or a PNG, it's flattened. What's wrong with flattened? I'm going to go back to one of my demos over here. What if I flatten the image? Look what I'm doing. I'm going to select all the layers by holding down the Shift key, and I'm going to go back here and say merge layers or flatten. Look what I have right now. I want to change the, and what if I saved it? I did Command S right away and I saved it the same name. There's nothing I can do now. If I don't have the original, I'm stuck. I don't have the bricks. The bricks looks different than the original. I don't have the bottom layer because it's all stuck together. Does that make sense? So when you do a JPEG or a PNG, you know they're going to be flattened. When do you use it? For the web, for sending a client. But for yourself, you always want to have a layered file. Never flatten it for yourself. Even if a client is going to say, I'm never going to make a change, don't believe them, because they're always going to say, can you say the perfect wave is there and now? No, I have to type something new and I have to wipe this. That's going to be forever. If I want to select the girl, that's going to take forever to isolate. Does that make sense? Because it's just the opposite then. Illustrator, that we're going to do in a second. I'll do something fast in Illustrator. Illustrator is vector, so you cannot flatten a file ever. It's always object, 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 so you can always retrieve them. So it's two different thinking, but they do work together. I'm going to do Command Z, so I don't really save it by mistake, but I'm going to go into the brick, to the brick now. And really what I want to do, I want to copy and paste it. So it is on a background, and when something is a background, you have to tell the machine, select part of it or the whole thing, and then copy and paste it. But I can also unlock the locker, and look what it says, layer 1. And if I double click, I call it brick. This one is already a layer. So if I am going to edit and copy and going back to the main image that I have here and edit and paste, look what I have. It's one on top of each other. Hopefully it's the same size. So I'm gonna go, no, it's not. You see, it's a lot bigger than the one that I had before. But I don't have to worry about it right now. I can make it smaller to fit exactly, or I can even go in and crop the area to fit it together. But what I'm doing now, I'm selecting just the brick, going to edit, and going to free transform. And you're gonna see if I zoom into it, look how big this file is. It's a lot bigger than I needed. I'm gonna go all the way to the side. And if the aspect ratio is okay, which is not right now, I'm gonna go back here and I'm going to go and cheat a little bit and then click OK and have it here. And now more or less it's in there. If I really wanted it to be the same size, I can go right now to my crop tool in my toolbar. And then I'm going to go in and say delete cropped image. And then I'm going to click enter or return. And now they are the same size if you needed that. But the first thing we want to do with that, I want to give it a nice background. Look a little bit nicer. What happened with the brick? What is the brick doing now? Absolutely covering everything. So I'm going to go all the way up when it says normal. And really what you want to do and start playing with the blending mode until you find something that you like. So you can see here, I'm looking at it and I say, what kind of blending mode I want to get that it's going to look really good for anything that I have. Some of them are more popular than others. You have, let's say, the multiply is popular, which is dark. The darken is very popular. The overlay is very popular over here, and the soft light. I'm going to click soft light. It is non-destructive. What does it mean, non-destructive? You don't like it, you open the file, guess what you do? Change the blending mode. I don't like it, I change the blending mode. You cannot accumulate blending mode on one layer. If you need to, guess what you're going to do? You're going to have to duplicate your layer. So now I'm saving. It is going to the cloud, so I don't even need to save it. But I'm going to go into my giraffe. And now I'm going to click on the giraffe. I kind of want to bring the giraffe all the way there, but I really want to bring the giraffe, not the background. There's a lot of selection tools that you can work with, but there's one of them that it's an immediate selection tool. So I'm going to go in and do select all, Command A, and copy, Command C. And I'm going to go back to my composition. And I'm going to paste. And look how big it is. It's way too big for me. So I'm going to go in and click on the corner and start making it really smaller. And I'm going to go, oops, I don't want to rotate it. I'm going to go back here and make it really small. And I have it here, and it's okay. This is what I want. But now, what's wrong with this giraffe? I have a background. There's few ways I can work with. I can go to try a blending mode and say, if it's going to be multiply, it's going to look like this. Look at that. So sometimes I'm just going to cheat and do stuff like this. But the other thing that I want to do is I basically want to take away the background. One of the things that takes a long time to do with Photoshop is selecting. And they start making the selection so much better right now. So we're going to go to a fast selection that we have also inside Express. Remember when I removed the background for the kitty cat? I'm going to do a remove background in Photoshop. I'm going to go to my properties panel. If you don't see it, go to your window and bring the properties panel out. And I'm going to and look at this. I'm stretching it and I have something called quick actions. Do you see the word quick actions? And I'm going to say remove background. Yay, look at that. Not bad. Of course, it chopped their leg because they were some stuff, but not bad for what I want to do. Does that make sense? I clicked on remove background. And now I can go in and move it and put it somewhere that I like. And this is kind of like my giraffe over there, just sitting here, and I remove the background. But the good news that I have here, in Express, when you remove the background, you can play with it a little bit, but it is what it is. Guess what's here? It's absolutely 90% for 999 or 200% non-destructive. Do you see a little thing next to the file? A little square. What the machine is really doing it for you, if you click on this little square, this is a mask. And if you hold on the Shift key and click on it, look what you see. It's basically the entire image is still there. We're not going to get into masking today, but that gives you the ability to reveal and conceal extra stuff for later. Shift click on and off, on and off. So if I did something really not great, there's an ability for me to bring back a lot of stuff and just play with it. So it's really cool. If I want to see the mask, I'm holding down the Option key and clicking, and this is the mask. It tells you whatever is white in Photoshop, in masking, it reveals everything. You see, what do you see here? The zebra. Whatever is black is concealing what in front of you, and that's your background that I took away. So if you join one day my full-blown Photoshop class, we talk a lot about masking, how to reveal and conceal everything. And everything basically in Photoshop works with masking. Express doesn't have masking. Firefly doesn't have masking yet. Maybe one day they will have that. So now if I have it, I'm going to click on that. And then I want to go in, select the zebra, and maybe play with some kind of blending mode. So if I go into overlay, look at her. But if I'm going to color dodge, look at the zebra right now. You see the zebra just standing there, and everything is that like this. Can I go in now and duplicate the zebra? Absolutely. If I hold on the Option key, click on her and move it, release my mouse, and then release my option, I have another zebra. But the next one, maybe I want her to be in a normal mode. And maybe I want to go back here and they're standing next to each other. So this is a complete freedom that you have. You can name the layers, you can move the layers, you can group it, and you can create anything that you want. Can I go now and crop stuff? I want to show you how the cropping is working. So cropping is basically cutting everything, and you have 3 versions nowadays with Photoshop. I'm going to go to the crop tool, and I'm going to select that, and look what I have here. This is kind of my aspect ratio, and I'm going to crop it, and I'm going to delete the pixels. You can do another crop that you do not delete the pixels. And now I have my file, and maybe I like it and can work with it. Can I add stuff to it? Let's click on the type tool and just click somewhere on the screen and tell me what you see. You're gonna see a typeface, either a default that's going to be Myriad Pro, or you're gonna see the last typeface that I used with the file and it goes. So mine has script. Why? Because the last time you saw I did that, right? So the type is live. We have a new feature. What version are you guys using? Are you using 2024? So do you see this little contextual bar over here? That's new in 2024. If you don't want to see it, you can tell it to go away. People ask for it because they wanted to do stuff fast from here, but you can click on the three dots and say more properties, hide the bar, reset the bar, pin it, and watch a quick video about something. So that's the last. My type was market OT. I'm going to click here and I'm going to bring another typeface. I'm going to scrub it to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to click here on the color and I'm going to make that a little lighter. So you can see I'm still working. I can align it to the center and I can align it to the right. But what is it aligning to? It's aligning to the place I started to type, because it's not a layout program. So it aligns the same way. So I'm going to go and now I want to type something. So I'm going to say, what the long neck, because it's a zebra. And I'm going to click OK and then click in the move tool and bring it over. So now look at this. It's too big. I'm going to go to the type tool. Select it again. I can either make it smaller or I can go in and shift return and I have it as a paragraph. And then I can go back here if I want to do everything long neck. And I'm going back here and bring it over here. Can I go back and start making it bigger? I can go in and scrub it and move it around, and I have the text. Does that make sense? If you have a spelling mistake, you have a spell check also inside Photoshop right away. Does that make sense? We're just going to do one more thing there, and then we're going to save it, and look how fast we did something really kind of like nice with different effects. I'm going to go and double click on the empty area, and that brings me my layer style. And I can add a drop shadow and maybe a bevel and emboss, and maybe even add a texture to it so you see some texture into it. Can I go to color overlay? Yes, I can. And click on the color and even sample a color from my image or sample a color from the area, and look what I have right now. I have some kind of stuff. Do I want to have one of them a little bigger, or when I want to go in and click on one and make this guys all the way here? That's okay. With the text, when I double click, and these are the effects. So you can start clicking on different effects and start playing with it. You can save these effects and bring them back later. You can do different kinds, and the type is live. What does it mean? I can change the typeface at any time. Absolutely non-destructive. Does that make sense? So this is kind of stuff that you can do with Photoshop and then save it as a Photoshop file. And of course you can save this one I can open now Photoshop files in Adobe Express, and they will be linked to this one. I can take this file now and go to my Creative Cloud. I'm going to go to my library, and then you see I have a lot of libraries. I'm kind of like a library hoarder. Look how many libraries I have here. But if I want to create a new library, and I'm going to call it Testing with Creative Cloud, this is what I have in the library that I have over here. And then I'm going to go back here and bring some stuff. So I can go into any image that I have here, and in the plus sign, I'm going to go in and say graphics. So look what I have, the brick. I can go into the layer before, and I can go and bring the graphics. So if I didn't even want to send you files, actually I could have sent you a library to share. That's it. I didn't, because sometimes the internet here is not good and people, but that's a way you can do it with your client. You say, here's my library, go ahead and do the stuff there. Can I open this library in Express? Absolutely. Can I open it in Illustrator? Yes. In InDesign? Yes. In Premiere? Yes. Everywhere that you go into Adobe ecosystem, the library belongs to that. So I can go back here and I select and add the graphics. So look at this. I added the two layers together because I selected them. So whatever you do, you can have stuff directly to your library, and then you can go back to Illustrator and bring the zebras over there, and they're going to be pixels visiting Photoshop. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go again, and let's look at two. I mean, we're not going to do them, but I'm going to do File and Open, and I'm going to go to my computer, clicking on the Photoshop, and then I'm going to go into Neural Filters. And look what I have there. I'm basically going to open Neural Filter Demo. And I'm going to click Open. This is going to show you something that's going to have more than one artboard. So what does it mean in terms of my layers panel? Look at the layers panel right now. It is a regular layers panel, but it has kind of looks like folder, and you have the ability to create artboards. So one Photoshop file, as many artboards as you want, takes a lot of memory because it's basically what you see in front of you is 3 Adobe Photoshop files, but I put it in one. So, but what you have here, I created different filters to the same image. So I'm going to look at the first one, and if I turn off, that was the original. And I'm going to bring the image here, and then the filter is going to go in and go back. And of course, it's not coming back now because it has some memory issue. But if you go in and take it on, this is basically was the original of the images here. I had 3 images that look the same, and I added some filters to them to create an effect. Does that make sense? When we dive into the 10 weeks of Photoshop, we're going to work with outboard variation and ideas how to go and work. So I have another sample over here. I'm going to go open here, and I'm going to go to Photoshop Project, and then the Suite Escape. I'm going to go back here, and you have general images here to create, and then you have layered image. But basically, if you go in, and this is the image itself, so I can actually separate it to different kind of artboards and do variation. And this one is a good file to investigate because I have more layers. So if I'm going to turn off all the layers, it's okay if I save it because I still have everything. And you can see I have masks in there like we had, and then I have the sky, and then I have the text, and I have another filter, and I have a frame. Does that make sense? Everything is layered over here. I can go to each layer and do some changes. I can duplicate the layer, and I can create variation. So really what I want you to do as a takeaway from this fast demo is work with layers, always. Work as much non-destructive as you can. So even if you're not sure, duplicate your layer. Do another version, duplicate another layer. It takes memory, but memory nowadays is not expensive. When I started to work with Photoshop, I don't want to start telling you how much was it for a little drive that called Cypress years and years ago. It was this size. It was 40 megabytes only. It was $80. So all what I did over here, if I wanted to save it, it was $80 already, and on and on. Nowadays, you're gonna put everything in the cloud, you're all good. The only time that's gonna create a problem is when you have a slow machine. So before we leave Photoshop, I just want to give you a nice preview. File in new. I'm going to create a new file. Come on. And this is it. And look what I have all the way down. And this is new in 2024. You see a tiny, tiny little icon. That's new. If you don't have the newest 2024, it's not there. If I click on it, what is it? Firefly is within Photoshop now. So now it tells you prompt inspiration, generate an image. I'm going to go in and go my favorite ducky over here and says rubber duck in the bubble bath. Do I want it with photos? Do I want the style with a certain reference? Do I want to have a special effect to it? And then I want it to be antique and faded image. And then do I want to go in and generate? And now I'm going to go and generate. So like I'm pretending I'm in Firefly and now I'm in Photoshop. So they just came up with this one within Photoshop. So now I barely go to Firefly because I go directly here because it's so much easier for me to work. And then in my properties and in the contextual bar, I have variation. And then in the properties here, look what I see. I see the ducky that I worked with, and then I can go in, remove the background, good or bad. And then I can say, I want to go in and have another reference style. So I'm going to go back here, and then maybe in the reference style, I'm going to go in and bring another kind of image over here. And then I'm going to replace it to something that I have for my file. I'm just replacing it. And I'm replacing it, and I'm going to go back here and generating. So now my ducky is going to look different, and I'm inside Photoshop. So you have a lot of stuff directly in Photoshop that you can do different kind of things. You can extend, and look at this. It looks absolutely different because I put some kind of references, and then I can decide if I want to go and work with it. Does that make sense? Any questions about, I know it's fast because it's just a demo. And you know, if you want to learn more, in the 10 weeks class, we go step by step, pretty slow on everything that we do until we get most of the stuff. So I'm just gonna close Photoshop because we don't have a lot of time. And I'm going to give you a quick demo with Illustrator. And I don't want you to get confused because whatever I just said, it's just the opposite in Illustrator. What does it mean? In Illustrator, everything is an object. Everything, you do have layers in Illustrator, but guess what? You don't have to use it if you don't want. The layers in Illustrator are for organization. So it's easier to use layers because it's going to work better, but you don't have to. So let me go in and open Illustrator. Does Illustrator has AI in there? Yes, it does. And it's called text to vector. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do File and Open. And I'm going to go to my AI projects. And I'm going to go to the symmetry. And then I'm going to go first to the symmetry AI and just open it. And just to show you, I have two artboards over here. And I'm going to look at my layers panel. I do have two layers. I have one layer here and I have another layer here. But I really want to show you what's the difference here. Remember the layers panel in Photoshop that had a lot of stuff, opacity and blending mode? It's not here. It will have blending mode in Illustrator and opacity, but it's going to be in a different layer because this one is just organization. I'm going to turn off layer 1, the layer 2, and look at this. I'm opening. Look what I have inside. What are these? I'm going to make this layer panel option a little bigger so you can see it. That's what's confusing in Illustrator. Are these layers? No, they're groups. They are groups within one layer. I want to go in like I did in Photoshop before, and I'm going to go back here and say flatten artwork. I'm not going to say, wow, I can even save it with the same name. Look what I did. Everything that I have over here is basically whatever I did, I still have it. It's there. It's in groups. You cannot flatten a file in Illustrator. You can bring it into one layer and start working with it, but you cannot flatten it because everything that you do, you create another object. So I'm going to show you one fun thing. We're going to do it together. Let's go to File and Open. And open Repeat AI. And look what I did over here. I created already something for you guys. What did I do here? You don't have the move tool like in Photoshop. You have the selection tool. Whenever you select something, you can move it. So if that was in Photoshop in one layer, it will be one thing maybe going, right? Or a group in two layers, not in Illustrator. I just watch what I'm doing for a minute. Let's say I'm just going to do, look at this. I'm doing little things. Look what happens all of a sudden in my layers panel. These are not layers. These are objects within one layer. I'm going to do Command Z, Command Z, Command Z. How many objects you can have in one layer? Infinite. As many as you want. I like to open other stuff to other layers, so it's going to be more organized, but you can do the most beautiful images and object with one layer only, with tons of object in, but you kind of want to try to group it. So let's do this one together. I'm going to go in to my selection tool and just do a marquee around the two of them. hold on the Shift key and maybe make it a little bit bigger. In the layers panel, I have one layer and two objects. I want to create a nice looking symmetry and maybe even copy and paste it to Photoshop or bring it as an icon to Express or place it in InDesign or put it in my Creative Cloud. I'm going to go to Object. I'm going to go into Repeat. And in the repeat, you have a radial repeat, a grid repeat, and a mirror. I'm going to say radial. Oh, I didn't say radial. What did I do? I did the other one. The radial is more fun. I'm going to go and do radial. Look what happened. I'm going to click and hold on the Shift key. And then in the side over here, I'm going to go and do more repeats. Or less repeat. Or more repeat. Look what I have over here. I basically did a repeat from the two objects. I'm going to select that. At the moment, I have fill, but I don't have stroke. I can add a stroke to it. And now the repeat looks a little bit better. And I can go back here and do that. What do you see in your layers panel? One little repeat. It's almost like a filter that repeats it for you. And you can do anything with it. But if you go into the repeat itself and go to object and expand it, it will take it out from the repeat. And if I open the group, look what it did. Each little one that I had it together becomes a tiny group. Do you see that? Can I flatten it? Absolutely not. It will stay like this. I can ungroup. It will stay like this. What the option if I want to really flatten it? I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to go rasterize. What is rasterize? It's taking a Illustrator image, an object, and make it into pixels. And now I'm going to rasterize it, and look what happened. I have it over here, and it's basically one image. Now, if I zoom into it, it is a pixel. Do you see that? These are pixels. It's like a Photoshop file. I cannot go anymore and fix anything that I have. Basically, what I have is two different things here. And I rasterize the two of them. And now I can go back here and start working. And I can continue rasterizing until it's one object. Everything in Illustrator, as soon as it's more than one color, is more than one object. Does that make sense? So let's play for a second. Not a lot of time that we have here, but I'm going to go to File and New. And let's say I have that. So I can go to any object that I have, and I can go back here. I have objects. I have rectangle, I have ellipses, I have rectangle, I have stars. So let's say I'm going to go to the star and click one time on the screen. It is going to ask you how many points do you want to have to the star. Let's say I want to have 10. This is my star. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger or smaller, and look at that. I'm going to add more or less. More points, less points. It's still a star. If I want to go in and fill it with a color, there's no background or foreground over here. It's basically what you have here is fill and stroke. And if I want the stroke to be with dash line, I can do different dashes. So basically everything that I'm going to start doing right now, I can change colors, I can change sizes, I can cut object one and another, I can do whatever I want. So I can go into, let's say, my knife tool and basically cut it. And now, if I deselect and select again, look at this. It's 3 objects. Does that make sense? So think about Illustrator, that you're standing with a scissor and cutting little shapes, or a good analogy is around 3 o'clock when you're ready for your coffee and cookie. Too many cookies in the kitchen, cookie cutters, right? This is Illustrator. You make it. In Photoshop, you're basically standing in a studio and drawing on a canvas. InDesign is actually more like Illustrator. It is your layout program. And I have sample files for you to look at in a minute. And what you do with InDesign is really your bucket. What does it mean? You design beautiful stuff in Photoshop. You have beautiful logos in Illustrator. You place it in InDesign and create a brochure or a book. Yes, you can do brochures in Express, but it's not as beautiful as it's going to be in InDesign because the typography capabilities are way better. So I have, let's say, an example for you guys. And if I go to InDesign, and I call it the bucket because it's going to look beautiful if you have good assets. And where are they coming from? From Photoshop and Illustrator. Can you draw in InDesign a little bit? Yes, you can do stuff, but it's so much easier in Illustrator. So look at this. I do even have an image over here that I did actually for a school that I work with, and that's let's say, a newsletter or whatever you have. So I'm going to go into the presentation for that, and that's the first. And you can see over here, by the way, the image that you have there, it is AI image I wrote down students in the library and I put the logo of the school, but all the type and the links and everything was done in InDesign. And then you do have a links panel that basically in the links panel, you're going to go in and have the links that are part of this file. If I'm going to go to File and Open for something that I gave you, you can go into the InDesign project, and then you can see here a postcard event. There's extra images and there's Photoshop files as well. But if I'm going to go into the postcard, you can see over here, and I could have done it also in Illustrator. If it's 2 or 3 pages, I can do it in Illustrator. If it's more than that, I like to do it in InDesign. You don't want to do a book with 400 pages in Photoshop or in Illustrator. Somebody is not going to like it, and it's going to be the printer. You do it in InDesign. So what do I have over here? I basically have 2 pages. It's a postcard. It's the front of the postcard, and it is the back of the postcard. So what did I do here? I took an image that was done and treated in Photoshop. I have a logo that was done in Illustrator, and I have the information that was done over here in InDesign, including a QR code that I can go in and put it in there. So the presentation that I showed you before, like all the assets, it's basically done in InDesign. And what you can do in InDesign, let's say you did that, and you want to send it to a client who doesn't have InDesign. And you say, you really need to tell me if I'm on the right track right now. So you can go into File, and then you can say Publish Online. It is going to open a dialog box. You can give it a name and you can say, please check colors and spelling. You can go in and say all pages or a certain page, because what it was 400 pages, but they want you to check something. You can have single, or you can have a spread, like pages looking at each other like a book. In the advance of the area, you can go back here and say, allow viewer to search or allow viewer to download even a PDF file. They don't have InDesign, but I'm going to go in and publish. And it's going to tell you because something is missing. I'm going to say, okay. And now that's what InDesign is doing right now. It's creating a link for you. You can bring it to Photoshop, to Twitter, to email if you want. You can also go and view the document. I can copy the link, but I can also view the document. So I'm the client right now. And they send it to me and I can view it on my phone even. And I'm going to say, okay, let me see what's going on here. Oh, I don't really like it. I don't like that the QR code is actually sitting on our hand. So if I have the full-blown PDF suite like Acrobat, I can send them a little note on it and say, I don't like this, change the color, do this, do that. But they don't have to have InDesign because they are just a client. They can look at that. And then all the way down, because I told them that they can go, they can share, but they also can download a PDF for themselves and open it in Acrobat and change the stuff. Does that make sense? So this is basically the power of InDesign, which has a lot of stuff there because it gets very technical with typography. Very, very technical. So it's good for collateral, for books, documentation, manuals, all the stuff that is heavy with pages and type, I will do in InDesign. So is it fun to teach InDesign or learn InDesign? Not so much sometimes, because when I teach it, I'll say, go here, go there, X, Y, Z, you know, like be perfect because it has to follow something, but then when you use it, it's fun. When I teach Photoshop, I tell people, do a color, put a filter, everybody's having a good time. But by the way, InDesign has also, everybody has it now. Guess what InDesign has? Exactly. Only the first one, though, the first iteration of it. So basically, what InDesign has, I'm going to go back here, and then I can click on something and say text to image. And I can go back here and say a singer. I'm going to say a singer under a tree. I mean, I don't like to do people in Firefly so much because you're gonna see it's gonna come weird. But you can see there's cats, they have everything. That's new now in InDesign. InDesign has text to image. Illustrator has text to vector and color over there, and Photoshop has the biggest stuff, basically has all the element. Oh, look at it, a singer. I didn't say it's a guy or a girl, but look at this. So I have three them cinder under the tree. You see what I got? But his face is not so cool because sometimes they don't look so great when you do. Let me see. And then I'm going to go back here. This is the sample. I have variation. This is one. One. Oh, InDesign does it a little bit different. InDesign wants you to bring them because it's layout. And then it's another one, and I have another layout over here. So if I zoom into them, you can see maybe they're not so great, but I can go back here. See, this face is not so cool. Kind of like no teeth and things like this, but InDesign can also do that. Any questions? Well, we're getting to the top of the hour. Any questions about the stuff that I was talking about? Any questions about Photoshop that we wrote through, Illustrator, InDesign, the ecosystem of Firefly? Which kind of like topics do you like the best? Mhm.
I needed a job, so
Mhm.
it was kind of making it work.
Yeah.
But I know that the creative part was like is being like it happens more on Illustrator. So if I do Illustrator first, afterwards can I do like InDesign, and is it like good?
Yeah, it's a perfect one. Because in Illustrator, you can start drawing and understanding that the layer is only for organization. Everything is vector. It's the same in InDesign. It's a file-based application. It all works the same. It's a good introduction. And kind of the typography in Illustrator, it's not as robust as InDesign, but it has there too, the same things. So once you know that in Illustrator, InDesign is going to be a fast sale. So that's kind of my recommendation. I always also recommend do Photoshop and Illustrator before you do InDesign, because you bring them and you want them to be kind of like complete and nice when you put it. Once you understand these two, it's easier to do the layout. And the hard part is basically the typography and all kind of special stuff. So I would do first either Photoshop or Illustrator and then jump into InDesign. Once you know these guys and you know, let's say Photoshop, I will jump into After Effects. Don't do the After Effects without knowing Photoshop. It's really hard. So that's kind of like this Pro Tool are really good. Express is really a good introduction to do something pretty fast. Nobody from Adobe is here, so I can say it. It's not as wow as an Illustrator and Photoshop. Of course, I use Express, but I do a lot better stuff in Photoshop. Because I have so many other tools that I create. And then in Express, you're using templates and you're bringing stuff. You don't really create your own thing in Express. They have a new thing now that it is, you can draw a little bit there, but you don't really do the production there. You do the time, that's it. But in Illustrator and in Photoshop, you do everything. And that's my recommendation. Any other questions? Did you guys enjoy it? You're very quiet. Thank you for asking the questions. And hopefully I'll see you. Any of you are doing the certification classes? Which one are you doing? Illustrator. Oh, so I'll see you. Oh, I'll see you at 4, so you'll get a lot of me. Cool. Great. Thank you guys for coming. I am going to post that probably the next few days. They're going to post it on the site. Hopefully, maybe they can edit some stuff, and I am going to see you next time. Thank you. Yes.
Because from what I know, the certificate